Hello everyone and welcome to the Mercer County Football Show here on WBCB1490.com alongside the Trentonians George O'Gorman. I'm Mike Samsel heading into Week 5 of the Mercer County football schedule. And George, hard to believe, we were just talking about Week 1 or Week 2 upsets not that long ago. Now we're already at the halfway point.
Yeah, halfway point, and we're at first weekend in October.
Mm-hmm.
And, well, actually, it's only a 2-month season when you stop and think about it, because the playoff games usually are the first week of November. So, yeah, this is the halfway point in the season, and it's really going fast.
Yeah, it sure has. And as we take a look at the pack in Mercer County, it seems like 4 or 5 teams are really starting to set themselves apart. You take a look at West Windsor, Plainsboro South. You also have Allentown, Nottingham. Those seem to be the class of the field, and the 3-0 Notre Dame team as well.
Yeah, and the Notre Dame team is a team that you got to watch because they're getting better and better. And for a young team, every game is a growing process for Chappie Moore's club, and they're picked up a lot of maturity the other night in holding off Hightstown for that win. And Hightstown has a veteran club. Mm-hmm. We mentioned about West Windsor South. We mentioned about Allentown, Nottingham. There's a couple of clubs that are right on the cusp of kind of breaking through and having a pretty good season. Steinert being one of them. Mm-hmm. Steinert's got a big game this week at Hightstown Friday.
That'll be a big one, yeah.
That's and Hightstown. That was a tough loss for Hightstown the other night over at Notre Dame. You've got a couple of other ball clubs. Lawrence finally got to play a game in Mercer County against the Mercer County team, mm-hmm. and they blew out Ewing. Lawrence has a game, I think it's with Princeton on Saturday, mm-hmm. and they're not a bad ball club. A couple of the other ones. Hamilton got that first win over Princeton. That's who it was. Hamilton shut out Princeton Saturday morning. So there's a couple clubs that in the second half of the season could really put it together and make a run at possibly getting into the playoffs.
Taking a look at things last week, Florence 13-6. They struggled a little bit with that Robbinsville team, but ended up coming out with a victory. Florence remains undefeated on the year. West Windsor, Plainsboro South, as a lot of us expected, handled Northern Burlington 36-20. Eastern 28 ran Cocos Valley 21, and we talked about that Lawrence game. Lawrence 49 at Ewing 15. That's a big win for Rob Radis and the Cardinals.
They have played well. They got that opening win, I guess it was over Pemberton. Then they led Florence for, I guess, a half or 3/4 when they played in week 2, mm-hmm. and then got handled last week, I think, by Burlington Township. But so this was the first chance that the Cardinals had to get into Mercer County and play one of their more traditional rivals. And they did a nice job. And Samai Mitchell and Falkenberg, I think, threw 3 touchdown passes. So,
yeah,
that's a ball club that over the second half of the season could, possibly make a run at getting to the playoffs. Now they're 2-2. And, who knows, with the additional group in, NJSIA for Central Jersey, well, for the entire state, that can certainly help the Cardinals.
Another team that needs to go on a run if they're thinking about making the playoffs, but maybe in the part of their schedule where they can do it, are Tom Hoagland's Hamilton Hornets, 34-0 over Princeton. They get the victory, but if they want to think about making the playoffs, I would call this week against Nottingham a must-win.
Oh, this is a must-win, and it's not only because they're trying to get back and get their things straightened out, but Nottingham has always been a traditional rival. Well, it's a township rival for them,
right?
Probably just as big as the Steinert game on Thanksgiving. But for the Hornets, there've been some real heartbreakers against Nottingham. I remember a couple of years ago over at Bill McAvoy Field when Hamilton was lining up to kick a field goal right at the end of the game, and it got blocked. And I think the kid's name was Dennis Hernandez, went about 90 yards for
mm-hmm.
a touchdown, and that pulled out a big win for the North Stars. And that's one of the more memorable wins that John Adams has had over there. Now he comes in with a probably much more potent offense and certainly a classy defense coming in to Hornetland. So that's obviously the game of the week.
Yeah, that'll be one to keep an eye on, and we'll be on the call of that one on 107.7 The Bronx and 107.7thebronx.com. Starting at 1:45 with the Trentonian pregame show, I'll be out there alongside J.J. Duke. And speaking of games that happened last week in Mercer County involving the Nottingham North Stars, 55-6, they handle West Windsor Plainsboro North. Another tough season for Chris Casamento with the North Knights, but things keep rolling on for the North Stars. They are now 4 games into their season, and they've allowed a total of 6 points.
And, they got 55 points, and all everybody was talking about was that they had given up a touchdown.
Yeah.
After 3 consecutive shutouts. And you got to kind of feel for Chris Casamento and his Northern Knights from West Windsor North. It doesn't get any easier for them. I mean, they had a game against Trenton 2 weeks ago that, they ended up losing 14-7 on a late touchdown. Mm-hmm. Then they go into Nottingham and really get pummeled by a very good North Star team. And now they got undefeated Notre Dame on Friday night over at Monsignor Nolan Field.
Yeah, that one will also be on the BCB Sports Network on 107.7 The Bronx and 107.7thebronx.com. George will be on the call of that one with Vince Reed, as I will be out on a different assignment for this particular Friday evening. So Vince will be out at Monsignor Walter Nolan Field. Steiner takes on Trenton. Well, Steiner took on Trenton, actually. 20-14. They got the victory in 2 overtimes in a game that you and I had the call of. Vanel Deuces with the game-winning 25-yard touchdown. And I can almost feel you wanting to jump out of the booth and grab an offensive headset and just say, throw a slant over the middle.
Well,
a lot of those plays in overtime.
We had talked about how many times they were throwing slant patterns. They did not throw slant patterns. They were trying to throw the ball down into the corners and let either the Spartan receiver or the Trenton receiver out-jump the defender. Mm-hmm. And I said, the slant pattern always seems to be such a successful, play. But talking to Vanel Deuces after the game, he said that, assistant coach Costello kind of drew that up along with Dan Caruso because they had seen that the Trenton defenders were playing back a little bit.
Right.
And I said to Caruso, why don't you throw slants more? He said, well, it's a tough pass for a quarterback to throw because he's got linemen rushing him. They got their hands up most of the time, and it's tough to see through those waving arms, if your receiver's open. But it was a quick slant, and Deuces caught it and just outran them to the. They had too much of a gap in the secondary there. They weren't playing him up tight.
Right.
They gave him a little bit of room, and that's all Vanel Deuces needed was a little bit of room, and he was able to catch that ball in stride and go right into the end zone. It was an interesting game. It was an exciting game because it went 2 overtimes. Mm-hmm. Second year in a row that Trenton has lost an overtime game in Hamilton Township. Last year they got beat in the famous, well, we call it the famous because it was the only snow we had last year. That blizzard game on Halloween, well, it wasn't really a blizzard. It was just snow on the ground. They lost 3-0 in overtime at Hamilton. And I have to check this because I think if you go back in history, I think that may be the 3rd overtime game that Steiner had played. And I think they're 3-0 in regular season games, in overtime games. I remember back in, I guess it was the 80s, they had a couple of overtime games at Ewing. And they pulled those ones out, but they were much more high scoring.
Right.
But this was a good game. And did you happen to notice the picture on the front page of the Trentonian on Sunday where Eddie Ashley coming up with an interception there to thwart one of the Trenton drives, and he kind of made a David Tyree catch.
Yeah,
where
a little bit.
Where he had the ball pinned on his helmet. He caught it right on his helmet.
Uh-huh.
But, Steiner had, that was my first opportunity to really watch the Spartans for an entire game. And they've got some weapons. Zim's getting better as a quarterback. Mm-hmm. And Jeff Martinelli is running the ball very well. Vanel Deuces is catching the ball very well. Martinelli also catches it. Steiner lost a lot through graduation, but... Eddie Ashley, they can use him as a running back, a defensive back, a return man, a receiver. He does a lot of things for that Spartan team. And this is a big game because I would think that Pete Brescia, who we talked about last week, where he was a graduate of Notre Dame and had coached at Notre Dame.
Right.
Now he's taking on a Steiner team, and he had actually coached at Steiner prior to getting the job at Hightstown.
Right.
So he's got a lot of things going there. He'd love to beat. And his father was a former coach. Pete Brescia Sr. had been a former coach for the Spartans back in the 60s. So there's a lot for Pete Brescia on the line. And I know he wants to get his kids, pumped up again after that tough loss to Notre Dame the other night.
Yeah, absolutely.
Those were 2 interesting games that we had. We had the Notre Dame game where they won it on a late touchdown by Nico Sfero, and then the next day we had the double overtime game with Trenton and Steiner. Doesn't get much. I mean, the games weren't classic games in the sense that it was, there were some pretty interesting plays.
Right.
It wasn't a clean game. There was a lot of, penalties and things like that. But I thought that for excitement, it was very good.
Yeah, 2 very entertaining games. And as we mentioned, Notre Dame 19-16 on the late touchdown by Nico Safara. And that was an interesting game because so often we hear about Chappie Moore and Notre Dame, and it's kind of throw, and it was down to crunch time, and they just handed the ball to Nico Safara and pounded that Hightstown defense.
They've got some good weapons there, you know, and they've got it's a Devin Griffiths, the receiver.
Mm-hmm.
He caught some big balls, big catches down the sideline for the Irish. And I'll tell you what, Rob McCoven, every game that he gets under his belt is a plus. And he's getting better and better, and that's just what that team needs. I think Chappie said he had like two sophomores starting on the offensive line.
Yeah.
And it took them time in the beginning of the game to kind of get them acclimated.
Mm-hmm.
But then they started running the ball well. Lorenzo Bryan and Nico Sfaro, nice 1-2 combination. And McCoven is doing a good job. And, you know, like the Irish usually do when they start with a young team, by the time they get to the midpoint in the season, you can see the maturity coming in.
Right.
By the end of the season, they're usually pretty good. And unfortunately, they get to the playoffs. That's not unfortunate. They get to the playoffs, but they always have to go against one of those traditional North Jersey powers, either Don Bosco, Bergen Catholic, St. Peter's.
Right.
One of those teams. But who knows? One of these years, maybe the Irish will put it together. Remember, this is a young Notre Dame team.
Yeah, it's a very young team. A lot of sophomores and juniors out there. So Chappie Moore will have a lot of talent back next year. And one of the other games, probably the 3 games of the week in Mercer County, we expected a good one, Trenton and Steiner. We expected a good one between Notre Dame and Hightstown. Maybe a game that wasn't expected to be as close as it ended up being. Hopewell Valley was very tough, 19-7. They ended up falling to Allentown. But Allentown certainly had their hands full in that one.
Well, they did. And I got to wonder, they were trailing at halftime. It was, again, for the second time in 3 weeks, but we were interrupted by lightning.
Right.
We really never got any rain. We never got extended lightning. But, you know, the rule is you see a flash of lightning, you got to stop the game for 30 minutes.
Right.
Interesting that it was, it was like 30 seconds to go to halftime when the lightning hit.
Yeah.
And so they stopped the game, took the teams off the field. That pretty much was halftime, because when they came back, they finished 30 seconds, had like 2 minutes break in between, and then went in and started the third quarter. Mm-hmm. So that was good. But I know at Allentown, interesting, Allentown rallied in the second half, and apparently that lightning that we saw at Notre Dame was really out towards the Allentown area, because apparently it rained very heavy in the second half at Allentown, and yet the Redbirds were able to put together a pretty good offense, and Norman Williams running the ball, and that's a nice club, and I think everything is building for the Redbirds as they get ready to. In fact, they've got a game this week, and I think it's an early start, if I'm not mistaken, on Friday night, because it's homecoming night and Hall of Fame night at Allentown. Mm-hmm. And I know that the Redbirds really play that up big. They're playing Trenton, which it doesn't get any easier for Joe Misnick's club. They're just playing tough teams game in and game out.
Right.
But they played Trenton, and a couple of years ago covered the game at Allentown on Hall of Fame night, and Allentown, I think, scored 77 points.
Wow.
I think it was 77-41 or something like that. Mm-hmm. And I think that was the game where Ross Shurman must have had like about 5 touchdowns.
Yeah.
And you got to wonder if the Redbirds, how they're going to do this weekend. Trenton coming in. That was a good Trenton team that they scored 77 points on. Who knows if they can do it again? They won't score that. I don't doubt they're going to score that many points, but you never know. But it's an interesting game, and I believe it's a 5:30 start.
Yeah, the Mercer County Football Show is being brought to you by our friends over at St. Francis Medical Center, the Heart Hospital in the city of Trenton, and also Haldeman Ford Subaru, Route 33 in Hamilton Township. We're going to step aside, take a quick time out here on the Mercer County Football Show. We'll come back, take a look at the games we have for you in Mercer County for Week 5. It's the halfway point, and this is the Mercer County Football Show on WBCB1490.com.
I'm Jerry Jablonowski, President and Chief Executive Officer of St. Francis Medical Center. For over 137 years, St. Francis has remained committed to the people of Trenton, living out our mission to be a transforming, healing presence in the communities we serve by delivering top-quality health care to all in a personal and compassionate manner. We have continually expanded our services to meet the changing healthcare needs of our city. Despite the hospital changes taking place in Trenton, St. Francis will continue to be here, providing all the residents of Trenton with access to top-quality health care, both at our hospital and within your communities where you live and work. Our renowned services in cardiac care, cancer treatment, and stroke care, in addition to our newly designed comprehensive care of chronic diseases, will continue to provide Trenton with the best in healthcare services. Our emergency room is always open for your immediate needs in times of medical crisis. St. Francis Medical Center. We'll be here so you'll be well.
The Trentonian presents Philadelphia Eagles Football Frenzy. You could win the grand prize to see the Eagles play Dallas in Dallas on December 2nd. Get your copy of the Daily Trentonian to register. Enter between now and September 30th for your chance to win. Every Sunday, the Trentonian is giving out a $100 gift card, a 2-night hotel package for two with your choice of a regular season Eagles game, and on October 7th, the grand prize will be announced. A flyaway package to Dallas to see the Eagles take on the Cowboys December 2nd with 2-night hotel accommodations. For entry rules, check the Daily Trentonian and enter as often as you like in the Trentonian or online at Trentonian.com. It's the Philadelphia Football Frenzy from the Trentonian, the only local paper serving both Bucks and Mercer counties.
Back here on the Mercer County Football Show on WBCB1490.com alongside the Trentonians George O'Gorman. I'm Mike Samsel. Today's show being presented by St. Francis Medical Center, the Heart Hospital in the city of Trenton, and also Haldeman Ford, Route 33 in Hamilton Township. Don't forget, we're also seen on Trentonian.com as well. And if you're busy on a Friday or Saturday night, can't make it out to any of the games, a great way to keep updated on things in Mercer County as you're listening to us on 107.7 The Bronx is to check out the Trentonian chat. You can follow Matt Osborne or any of the guys on the Trentonian. They'll put the link up on the website for you, and you can follow all the action. Again, that's Trentonian.com. Friday nights and Saturday afternoons, you can check out their chat for live updates on the week's Mercer County football games. Taking a look at things in Mercer County this week as we welcome you back to the Mercer County Football Show. Kind of a light slate on Friday night. Only have 3 games, but there are a couple of good ones. And I would say the headliner on Friday night would be Steinert at Hightstown.
You're definitely correct on that. And it's a game where the Rams, Pete Bresch's Hightstown Rams, like we mentioned previously, that the connection there with Bresch's name at Steinert.
Right.
Pete Sr. had been the coach of the Spartans. He's a Hall of Fame coach at Steinert back in the 60s. His son played at Notre Dame. Last week he got to face his alma mater where he had also coached. Now he's going to be hosting Steinert where he had also coached for, I think, 2 years prior to moving on and getting the head coaching job at Hightstown. And this is I would rate this a toss-up game. Yeah. Because I think that we mentioned what the weapons that Steinert has, and you got to like some of the guys that are playing. Joey DeCristofaro, by the way, was one of the linebackers. Does an excellent job for the Rams. He was honored last night at the 12th Man TD Club as on Tuesday night at the 12th Man TD Club as the Defensive Player of the Week. And interesting stats. Let me see what Joey had last week. He had, as a defensive back, he had 14 tackles in that game. He forced a fumble, and he also helped contain a Notre Dame drive, a couple of Notre Dame drives. It was just a great defensive effort on the part of Joe DeCristofaro. Yeah. They came up with a goal line stand. He's I think he's also an outstanding wrestler for the Rams. And you put him in there along with Brandon Block, who plays very good defense. Of course, we all talk about, Jude Brenya, who I think has had like 2 sacks pretty much in every game. He had 2 sacks last week against Notre Dame.
And that's a good overall defensive line
Terrence
there at Hightstown.
Powell,
Joey Radley, Terrence Powell, Brandon Cortese. I mean, that's a solid D-line.
Brandon Cortese, that's a very good defense. I'm not saying it's as good as the Nottingham defense, but it's a good defense. That's why probably one of the toughest games that Nottingham had was their opener against Hightstown, was a 13-0 game.
Right.
But no, I think I got to feel that the Rams are going to want to bounce back big, and no better way to do that than to knock off Steinert. And like I said, it doesn't get any easier for Dan Caruso's club.
No, certainly not. And George, one of the things we talked about, Hamilton in a must-win situation, if Steinert plans on making the playoffs and getting a chance to defend that Group 3 crown, Group 3 runner-up, they're certainly going to have to win this one, but I'm with you. I think Hightstown is ultimately going to come out the victor in this one, and that's probably a playoff team there in Hightstown as well. If they can, keep going on the track they're going right now, they got to win a couple more close games right now. A couple of close games they had with Nottingham and Notre Dame. Come out on the losing ends of those ones. If you want to be a playoff team, you do have to learn how to win those close games.
Nottingham and Notre Dame, let's face it, they're still undefeated.
Yeah, that's true.
And actually, when you stop and think about it, Hightstown has given Nottingham and Notre Dame, two of its closest games so far.
Yeah, that they have.
But he's got the good receivers there. Coleman can throw the ball. He's got whether it's Max Cutler, Tyler Close is an excellent receiver. Marco Zarowski, who had a reception, and Eric Headley. That's a good Hightstown team.
Yeah, a lot of weapons on that team.
But they're going to have to start putting some wins together. They should be a Group 3 team, qualifying for the playoffs. And there you've always got it tough because you've got the middle towns and, a lot of those teams up north in Monmouth County that you have to contend with. So, Hightstown's got to feel like they let that one get away last week against Notre Dame. And if they can put it together and come up with a big win against Steinert, that should be, and that probably is the feature game of the weekend, I would think.
Yeah, I would think so as well. Game we're going to have for you on 107.7 The Bronx and 107.7thebronx.com. Chris Casamento's North Knights head into Monsignor Walter Nolan Field, and this would be a good opportunity. No disrespect to the North Knights, but this would be probably Notre Dame's best chance of the year to get one rolling.
I would think so, but they got to watch because a couple of years ago, West Windsor North came in there, and although they had a lot more weapons than they have right now, they came in there and gave the Irish a really tough time. I think Notre Dame was able to pull that game out, if I'm not mistaken, but they had a tough time going against West Windsor North that particular night. I just think that the Irish have too much balance and are able to really be gaining momentum. You kind of feel sorry for West Windsor North. They were hit by some injuries early in the season.
Yeah. But
they've been running the ball. Tyrone Parker is an excellent running back. I saw him against Trenton a couple of weeks ago, and he was really cramping up. He kept North Stars North in that game against Trenton, which was ultimately decided by a late touchdown by Tremaine Nieves. But Notre Dame, sometimes a team, it's a veteran type of team, would look at a West Windsor North on the schedule and see that the struggles that they've had and the fact that they're winless, and it's kind of what they call a trap game,
right?
Where you're looking past somebody down the road, and you may, overlook the
big game next week against Hopewell Valley,
against the winless Northern Knights,
right?
But I think this Irish team is probably too young to be thinking about that. About looking past anybody. I think they're just looking to try to improve game by game, which you got to, Chappie is impressed with that. And his kids, he had, like I said, he had two offensive linemen that started last week, and once they got themselves situated at halftime, along with that extra, time that they had to prepare in the at the halftime, and because of the lightning delay, they came back. And if you remember, Mike, they had a good, strong second half.
Yeah, that they did. Another Friday night game. The Tornadoes are going to be under the Friday night lights in Allentown, and again, we see this is a talented Trenton team, but I think Allentown is going to be too much for Joe Misnick's Tornadoes to handle.
Yeah, I think Allentown is, as we mention every week, Jay Graber, what an outstanding job he's doing with Palladino, the quarterback, is throwing the ball all over the place. He's got, we keep talking about Frank Juba, Norman Williams. I mean,
right.
They really came through in the second half last week and handled what still is a good Hopewell Valley team, which had lost the previous week, got shut out. And I know that the Bulldogs were really upset about that game when that they lost, and especially because they got shut out by Hightstown. But now we see that Hightstown is a good ball club. But yeah, I mean it's just going to be a tough one for the Tornadoes. They're not bad.
Yeah.
And I thought last week they were able to cut down on their mistakes that they tend to make a lot better.
Yeah, your false starts, your offsides, things like that.
But sometimes their defensive backs just have to play a little smarter. Terrence Spotwood has been doing an excellent job in that secondary for the Tornadoes, whether he's lining up at defensive end or whether he's over there at safety or cornerback. But they got to play the Allentown receivers tight, or Palladino will be throwing the ball all over them. And I'm not saying they're going to score over 70 points again, but I would think that Allentown should be able to. This may be I don't want to see it'll be a back and forth game with each team matching each other on points, because I don't know if Trenton has enough weapons.
Right.
Ryan Wharton, had another 100-yard game last week. He's among the CVC rushing leaders again for the second week in a row. I think he may be second this week. but that's a team that Trenton's defense is going to have to really win this game for them.
Right, yeah, absolutely. Another game we're going to have Friday night, that will be Ewing and Bordentown, and Ewing kind of licking their wounds after a tough game against Lawrence, and I don't expect things to be much easier against Bordentown.
You know, that was a game last year. I don't know how they're playing at Bordentown again. 2 years in a row, I guess because of the new schedule in the WJFL. But Ewing went in there last year in the second week of the season. They had lost their running back, Bernard Bethea, the week prior to that when he got hurt just prior to halftime in their opener at home. They didn't have Darrell Griffith in that opening game last year. Darrell Griffith came back because he had been sitting out a suspension incurred the year before in the playoffs. Darrell Griffith comes back, and on the second series that he's in, he blows out his knee.
Yeah.
And he's gone for the year. And he was hoping to recover by the end of the season. Never did. Never got back on the basketball team because of the injury.
Right.
But this is an improved Bordentown team.
Mm-hmm.
So, you know, and Ewing's really got to be feeling down after getting trashed like they did last week, going into Lawrence. But you know, there's a lot of extenuating circumstances. Lawrence had some tough games prior to that. Isn't a bad team, and just put everything together last week. So, you know, last year, as I said, it was a close game with Ewing and Bordentown. Ewing pulled it out for one of their few wins of the year. I think they only won 2 games last year, but I think they're going to have a lot more trouble going into Bordentown this week.
Yeah, that could be a tough game for Ewing, and we'll keep an eye on that one. A lot of Saturday afternoon action. Delran will come into Florence, and I expect the Flashes to just keep rolling in that one as well. Joe Frapoli just has a football powerhouse there in Florence.
Yeah, but you know what? Delran is not a bad ball club. Delran's leading to one of those divisions in the WJFL.
Yeah.
I think the Bears are, I don't know if they're undefeated or they're 3-1, but they're a very good ball club. And, you know, I got to wonder if last week, I don't want to, you know, discredit anything that Robbinsville did in keeping that game against Florence close, but I got to wonder if maybe Florence might have been looking past the Ravens to this matchup with Delran, because this should be a very good game. Delran is a good ball club, and they've been getting better. And who did we see them against? They opened up with somebody early in the year. Maybe it was it at Ewing? They may have beaten somebody. It came into Mercer County, I think.
I believe it was Ewing, yeah.
But this probably is the best game of the slate in Burlington County next weekend, or this coming weekend.
Right.
That's a Friday night game, isn't it?
No, that's a Saturday game, I believe. Or no, that would be a Friday night game. Florence has lights, don't they?
Yeah, Florence has lights, a brand new stadium.
Yeah, so I believe that's a Friday night game.
Yeah, I don't know why, because then that's interesting, because earlier in the year Florence played Lawrence.
Yeah, and that was a Saturday afternoon game. So
at any rate, whenever the game's played, it should be a great one.
Yeah, that'll certainly be one to keep an eye on. Game you'll be at, George. West Windsor Plainsboro South heads into a very talented Rancocas Valley Red Devils team down at Coach Snyder Field there in Rancocas Valley, and that should be a tough one for Todd Smith and the guys.
It could be, but if things work well, Brian Shaner was back. Remember, he missed 2 weeks with a hamstring injury.
Right.
He's back, and last week in their win over Northern Burlington, which really ended up to be quite a shootout. Shaner rushed for 161 yards and scored 4 touchdowns. So, you know, if he's healthy, and with Andrew Murray stepping up, Malik Fuller getting better at quarterback, Tom Estafios, who, by the way, was another one of the 12-man TD Club honorees this past weekend. Estafios was the special teams selection, and he had 2 punts. He had a 41-yard average on 2 punts, and he also blocked a punt. And again, he's a two-way player for Todd Smith, and congratulations to Tom Estafios. I think he's the second brother or the third brother, the Estafios brothers, to play at for Todd over there at West Windsor South. But he's another weapon that they got to watch for. You know, Rancocas Valley is always a club that puzzles me because they've got some great talent year in and year out. They just never seem to put it together. They had that one good year, their first year in the WJFL, where they went 8-2.
Yeah.
Then they bounced back like Ewing and turned around and went, I think, 2-8 last year. But they've got some weapons, always strong running backs. And again, this is going to be a big test for the West Windsor South defense if they can put some things together in the trenches, as they say.
Rob Radis will be heading into Princeton with his Lawrence Cardinals to take on the Princeton Little Tigers on Saturday afternoon.
That game, two teams that are going head-to-head, a long-time rivalry that goes back many, many years. There have been some great Lawrence-Princeton games. In fact, I think Lawrence is... I know they even met one year in the playoffs, or was it twice? But at any rate, Lawrence Cardinals, I think, just have a little bit too much offense. And Falkenberg, this is a good game.
Yeah.
You've got two excellent quarterbacks. You've got Zach DeGregorio, who's a junior and quarterbacking the Little Tigers, and not bad. You got Will Harrison, who runs the ball real hard. You've got Nick Falkenberg, as we said, with the two evenly matched quarterbacks, two evenly matched teams. Lawrence last week put up, how many points did they get last week against Ewing? Was it 50?
They put up 49.
49, okay. And Princeton, on the other hand, got blanked by Hamilton, 34-0. So two teams who were, meeting this week that, were at opposite ends of the last week. That's a good game.
Yeah, that'll be one to keep an eye on Saturday.
I would not be surprised if I think that the Cardinals have put it together now, and I just think they're gonna put a string of wins together, and Princeton is just the unfortunate one to have to be playing them this week, because I think they gained a lot of momentum last week, a lot more confidence. Not that they were lacking any, because they had played well in a number of their games. They just had a tough schedule. I think that this schedule that Rob Radis and the Cardinals are facing this year is probably as tough, if not tougher, than what they've, had ever faced in the because they're in a new division now in the West Jersey Football League. I even forget the name of it. I have to bring the standings one week so we could look at them. But opening up against Pemberton and then going against Florence, Burlington Township. They're traditionally some of the strong teams in Burlington County, and then they come back last week and had a chance to play a team that they're more familiar with. They know something about Ewing. The kids, the two townships are not border each other. Now it's going to be an interesting game with Princeton, which Joe Gargione's Little Tigers. I saw them play, and they're not that bad. They played well against Hightstown. I don't know. Callahan O'Meara is an excellent, multi-talented athlete. This is another very good game.
Yeah,
you can look at all the games and really see why they could be very exciting games, and this is certainly one of them.
Yeah, that's what I was going to say. We had mentioned that it's a pretty good Saturday slate in Mercer County this week, and a lot of people are at least expecting the headliner to be Nottingham at Hamilton. That's game we'll have for you on 107.7 The Bronx and 107.7thebronx.com. Coverage of that one will be starting at 2:15 with the Trentonian pregame show, 2:30 start, thanks to the SATs and things of that nature. This is a must-win for Hamilton. There's no other way to put it.
Last year Hamilton started off, I think it was 4-0, and then went
1-5,
and 1-5 the rest of the way, and didn't make the playoffs. Conversely, they start off 3-0, 0-3 this year. Now they got a chance to possibly finish strong, which they didn't do last year, and it would have to start with a good performance, if not a win. I think that in order for Hamilton to possibly get back to the playoffs, they would have to knock off Nottingham this weekend, and because they would gain a ton of power points, being that the North Stars are a Group 3 with 4 wins under their belt. But Mark Aquaviva started to throw the ball pretty good last week. Ruben Desane is running the ball well. Javid James is running the ball well. This is kind of a interesting test for the North Stars. Frank Gatto's defensive coordinator at over there at Nottingham. They know what Hamilton's got, and conversely, Hamilton knows what Nottingham's got. Nottingham, Stephen Adams threw 3 touchdown passes last week. Luke Westerberg had a real big game, but this is going to be a tough one for Nottingham, especially because Hamilton. Traditionally, this is a very good game. There have been some classics in this one. I remember a game on probably about 7 or 8 years ago. I think it was Pierre Odom had a big touchdown catch down the sidelines, and that game was played at Nottingham. And then, of course, the one we mentioned when Dennis Hernandez went like 90-plus yards.
Right, on the blocked field goal.
To win the game on a blocked field goal attempt. So, that's a nice game. I'd like to see that game, but Rich Fisher will be covering that one for us, and Fisher Scores. But, you can always tweet into that Trentonian chat.
Yeah, absolutely. Keep an eye on the
Trentonian.
Trentonian.
What's going on. But hopefully you'll get to the game. If not, you can always listen on WBCB. Actually, we'll be on 107.7 The Bronx that day, right?
Yep, both games on 107.7 The Bronx this weekend and 107.7thebronx.com. You can head to our website, WBCB1490.com, although if you're watching this, you're already there, chances are, and check out the broadcast schedule for this week and for the rest of the season as well. Time to wrap things up, as we always do here on the Mercer County Football Show, with what is my favorite segment, Ask Coach. We get to pick the brain of George O'Gorman about anything that you want to ask. If you have a question, you can email in to me, msamsel@WBCB1490.com. And George, the question this week is, if there is a team out there to go on a Steinert-esque run that happened last year, who would it be this year?
I think it could be the Nottingham North Stars.
Mm-hmm.
Now they've got a total package.
Yeah. Running and defense a lot of times wins in the playoffs, and they got both of them.
They've got two quarterbacks who aren't, like an Adam Reese, but they both can throw the ball. They've got receivers. And remember, they're 4-0, and they haven't really had Rawway Williams do anything.
Right.
He got hurt early in the year. Santiago, is it Alex Santiago?
Mm-hmm.
Has been running the ball well for them. Got a very good defense.
And a lot of players, too. They shift around.
They do. They shift around, and they've got the veteran coaches. Both of them, Frank Gatto, who was former Steinert head coach, is now the defensive coordinator for the North Stars, even though he still teaches and is the, I think, guidance counselor over at Steinert.
Mm-hmm.
He's got playoff experience. John Adams took the North Stars to the playoffs, got to the Central Jersey Championship game a few years back, and so that's a good team. And his son is the quarterback. Really didn't have a lot of experience, but they've got some receivers. I think if anybody could, I don't want to discredit Allentown.
Right.
Allentown still has to play Nottingham coming up in a couple of weeks. Allentown's another team. Having been to the playoffs last year for the first time ever,
mm-hmm.
and nearly beating Neptune, lost that game in overtime.
Yep.
When they had an opportunity to possibly win the game if they had gotten a particular call. And then Neptune goes on and rolls through the playoffs, rallying in the second half to beat Steinert. I almost forgot, but Allentown might have the best chance.
Right.
Allentown or Nottingham, but then again, one of them is going to have to go against each other. They probably could be seeded 1-2 in the playoffs. I think they're in the same group this year. Ever since the state changed the bracketing around,
mm-hmm.
It's a little different. But Allentown or Nottingham could probably be the best chances that our area has to do something in the playoffs.
Right, and if you haven't heard, we have added that Allentown-Nottingham game to our broadcast schedule. You'll be able to check that one out on the 20th of October. We believe that one's going to be on the AM. We're still in the process of finalizing, but we will have that game for you on the WBCB Sports Network. It's a couple weeks away, yeah, so we'll be on the call of that one, but that'll just about wrap things up for this week's Mercer County Football Show here on WBCB1490.com. A big thanks to St. Francis Medical Center, the Heart Hospital in the city of Trenton, and also Haldeman Ford Subaru Route 33 in Hamilton Township for allowing us to bring you this week's Mercer County Football Show. Big thanks to Matt Miro and Bill Redner, as always, as well as Matt Osborne from the Trentonian. For the Trentonians, George O'Gorman, I'm Mike Samsel. Thanks so much again for watching this week. We'll see you next time on the Mercer County Football Show. Have a great day, everyone.